is up, Raidernation? It's your boy Smorder back at it again with another episode of Nation Take, where I take some of your hottest takes and or question. I pick some of my favorite ones and I talk about it in this video. And if you're wondering how you can get yourself on the next episode of Nation Take, be sure to keep a lookout for a post like this in my community tab. I posted one randomly last night, so you might want to have that notification bell turned on just in case I post another one. So with that being said, let's not waste any more time and let's get right into the video.
And you tell them one thing, just win, baby.
This video is sponsored by Raiders Hall of Famer, the GOAT, Charles Woodson and Woodson Bourbon Whiskey. Be sure to grab yourself a bottle before the biggest game of the season. And if you guys are wondering where you guys can find some of this liquid gold, well, don't worry, Raider Nation, the Oos got you. Head over to woodsonwhiskey.com to find a store near you or have it shipped to your door. Woodson Bourbon Whiskey. If it isn't your game day whiskey, it is now. So my first take comes from Raider Gabe Lincoln. He says, Hunter Renfrow, top reserve on the team next year, 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. Now this all honestly depends on who we bring in this offseason, because we still got free agency, we still got the NFL draft, and who knows if Hunter Renfrow is still going to be the #1 receiver moving forward. Now last year, Renfrow did hit his career highs in yards with 1,038 and touchdowns with 9 total touchdowns. But to say that he would get 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns, I honestly don't see that happening unless he's the only receiver that Derek Carr has. And like I said, I doubt that happening because we will surround Derek Carr with some weapons on the offensive side of the ball. When we lost Henry Ruggs last season and Darren Waller for quite some time, you've seen Derek Carr force feed Hunter Renfrow a lot, which led to him getting all those accolades, all those numbers and whatnot. Not saying that he couldn't do it himself, but we didn't really have any other receiving weapons on the offensive side of the ball. So overall, realistically, I don't see him going for 1,200 yards, let alone 12 touchdowns, but I do see him getting about 1,000 yards and around 7 to 8 touchdowns. The next take comes from Sin City Nation, saying that Divine Diabolo will have a breakout year with 7.5 sacks and will be 3rd in the league in tackles. Now, I can definitely see Diabolo breaking out in 2022, especially having Patrick Graham as the defense coordinator, but getting around 7.5 sacks is a bit too high for me. I do see us drawing up some blitz packages, especially for our linebackers, more this season than we did last season, because you guys already know that Gus Bradley rarely even had our defense blitz at all. So, I mean, that could have affected his numbers last season, but to say 7.5 sacks, I still feel like that's a little bit too much. Realistically, I could see him getting around 2 to 4 sacks, but as far as tackles, yes, I definitely see Divine Diabolo being a tackling machine. I mean, he barely came onto the scene a little bit late last season, and when he did, there was a couple of games where he led our team in tackles, and he was right behind Denzel Perriman. So I feel like a whole offseason and a full season next year under Patrick Graham in this defense, knowing Graham's going to put him in the best position possible to go out there and succeed, I could definitely see him coming in 3rd, maybe top 5, heck, even the top tackler in the league. Who knows? But Raider Nation, what y'all think about Divine Diabolo in 2022? Do you think he's going to break out and have about at least 7.5 sacks? Or do you guys think it's going to be a little bit less than that? Let me know down in the comments below. Now my next take comes from West Coast Spartan. He asks, what are the missing pieces to take us over the top, player and coach wise? Now, as far as the coaches, I don't know how to really answer that. I mean, we have Patrick Graham for our defense. We have Josh McDaniels for the offense. So I feel like they are in place right now to take us over the top unless they prove us otherwise. As far as players, if we were to keep Derek Carr, the first order of business I would do is upgrading our offensive line. I would keep Colton Miller at the left tackle position, keep Andre James at the center position, and even though Alex Leatherwood didn't have a good rookie season, I would keep him at that right guard position, leaving our right tackle position and left guard position open. And I would address this in free agency and bringing in some veteran talent to help these young guys out. I preferably wouldn't go into the draft to address these needs. So in free agency, the top right tackle that I would go get would be Morgan Moses. If we were to solidify that left guard position, I would bring in Mark Glowinski. Now, some other guys that I wouldn't mind bringing in for that right tackle position, because that's definitely one of our biggest weaknesses, would be Jermaine Ifedi, or maybe even Trent Brown. I know you guys are going to kill me for this, but when he's on the field, he's one of the best right tackles in the league. But if he were to return, I wouldn't mind.
You kidding me?
Now, the second position I would address is bringing in some wide receiver help for Derek Carr in this offense. Now, Davante Adams would definitely be the number one person on my list, as well as a lot of Raiders fans, but bringing him in is going to be easier said than done, especially for the price tag that he's asking for. So with that being said, adding a veteran would definitely be something I would do this offseason, and I would trade a future third-round pick to possibly bring in Brandon Cooks to this offense. Brandon Cooks, I know, is a little bit up there in age, but he still has the intangibles to go out there, especially with a quarterback like Derek Carr, to succeed. And in free agency, I would go and sign John Ross to a really cheap deal. This is another guy that could take the top off any defense out there, so bringing him in would definitely be one of those underrated moves to add to this offense. Then I would draft a stud wide receiver in this year's draft. It's going to be a deep class, so you could possibly bring in Treylon Burks, Drake London, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, the list goes on. There's so many different weapons you could bring in. So you solidify that wide receiver core, by bringing in Brandon Cooks, you add a John Ross, and then you go get a young receiver in the draft to go alongside Hunter Renfrow. We could possibly bring back Zay Jones. I mean, our wide receiver core would be perfect at this point. And last but not least is addressing the defensive line, especially that defensive tackle position. A lot of our guys are on one-year deals, so I would definitely bring back the likes of Solomon Thomas and Quentin Jefferson to this defensive line, and then go into the draft. And hopefully, if this guy is in the second round, I would go and draft Perrion Winfrey. This guy is a beast, and I definitely feel like he could be a plug-and-play player for our defense moving forward. So I hope I answered your question, Raider Nation. If you guys have any other players that you feel like could help take this team to the top, let me know down in the comments below. Now, my next question comes from my guy, Mauz, Raider Nation Unlimited, featuring Wasted Talent. He asks, do you think the Raiders should spend big in their first year of the rebuild? I honestly don't think that they will. I do feel like they will bring in all the right pieces for the right prices. Not saying that we're going to be penny pinchers out there. I feel like we are going to spend a good amount of money, though, but I don't think that we're going to go get the top players. I don't think we're going to go make anybody the highest paid player at their position, especially knowing that next offseason is going to be huge for this team, because we're going to have a lot of young players that we're going to have to pay. You got the likes of Trayvon Mullen, Max Crosby, you got Hunter Renfrow, Josh Jacobs, Jonathan Abram, Darren Waller even. So with that in mind, that's one of the main reasons why I don't see this Raiders regime spending a lot of money this offseason. Now my next take comes from Doomsday. He says, what's good, Samoan Raider? If we don't make the playoffs next season, would you consider it a failure? Or give McDaniels and Ziegler another year to prove they were the right hire? The nation don't have patience, especially after Bisaccia got us in the playoffs. You're definitely right about that. The Raider Nation really doesn't have a lot of patience. But I would say yes, this 2022 season would be a failure, especially if we do not make the playoffs. I'm not saying that we would fire them or they were the wrong guys for the job. I just feel like we would be moving backwards, and I feel like if we don't make the playoffs, this season would be a bust. Because the fact that we made the playoffs last season with far less, I expect nothing less from Josh McDaniels and Dave Ziegler this season with this 2022 Raiders team. Now the next take comes from Uncle Rico, saying that Derek Carr would have been a top 5 quarterback this year and in the MVP conversation if it weren't for Gruden and Ruggs' situation. In the 7 games with Ruggs, we were 5-2, and he already had 5 300-yard games. Now I do agree with you on this, definitely, and I've talked about this many times. Losing Henry Ruggs was a huge loss for this team, and I would say was bigger than losing John Gruden, because we still had Henry Ruggs for 2 games after John Gruden got fired or let go or stepped down, and Rich Bisaccia led this team on a 2-0 streak going into the bye week. Obviously, we lost Henry Ruggs during the bye week, and after that, we lost the next 3 of 4 games. Overall, I would have to agree with you, Uncle Rico, that Derek Carr definitely was on his way to having such a great season, maybe even being in a top 5 quarterback discussion. Now, as far as being in the MVP conversations, I don't know about that. At this point, it's just all woulda, coulda, shoulda. But Raider Nation, what do you guys think? Do you guys feel like Derek Carr would have been a top 5 quarterback this season and possibly in the MVP discussions? Let me know down in the comments below. Now my next take comes from Seesaw. His take is, Derek Carr comes to the census and gives a hometown deal as contract and only plays for $20 million a year. Now Seesaw, as much as I would love to see Derek Carr, take that hometown discount and play for only $20 million a year, I would say there is no way in hell Derek Carr is going to play for $20 million a year, unless Davante Adams brings his candy ass over here to Las Vegas to play alongside of him. Now, the quarterback market right now is around $30 to $40 million a year, so realistically, I don't see Derek Carr playing for less than $30 million a year. And at that point, do you guys think that he's worth that money? Who knows? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Now my last question comes from SideUp831, simply asking, who you got with the 22nd overall pick? I love this question because I love talking about the draft, even though most of the time the Raiders never draft who I want them to draft. But with this team having so many holes on the team, lucky enough for us, there's a lot of options for us at the 22 overall pick. I know we still got free agency to go. We still got a lot of moves to make. But with what we have right now, I will go with wide receiver. It's one of the sexiest picks in the NFL draft, and in a class so deep like this year's class, I would draft wide receiver out of USC, Drake London. Now, London is by far one of my favorite wide receivers in this year's draft, alongside of Burks and Wilson, and those two I feel like would be off the board at number 22, so that's the reason why I went with Drake London. Just the size that London provides at the wide receiver position is huge, especially going up for those 50-50 balls. Just imagine the fade routes in the end zone from Carr to London.
My neck and my back.
Though he isn't the smoothest route runner in the draft, he still gets separation at his big size and has great after the catch ability. I would say that he is the best contested catch wide receiver in the draft. So with that being said, side up, I would draft Drake London. But Raider Nation, let me know who you guys would pick with the 22nd overall pick in this year's NFL draft. Let your boy know down in the comments below. Alright, Raider Nation, that is all I have for you guys today on this episode of Nation Take. If you guys enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button. If this is the very first time you come across my channel and you love the Las Vegas Raiders, then hit that subscribe button, hit that notification icon button just to notify you guys when I upload more videos just like this. Until the next video, this is your boy Simone Raider, and your boy is
Started off in Oakland, now we here. Thought that we was done, we just hit another gear. Look, started off in Oakland, now we here. Hey, pull up with the nation in the silver black gear. Look, 4 games straight, we in the playoffs. Shout out to the Chargers fans, y'all enjoy the layoff.